The massive space station stretched across the void like a silver city among the stars. Station Omega-7 was home to the finest warriors from every corner of the galaxy. Ships from 100 different worlds docked at its ports daily, bringing soldiers who had proven themselves in countless battles. Inside the main assembly hall, representatives from the most powerful military forces in known space gathered for their monthly briefing. The Valkyrie stood in perfect formation, their crystal armor catching the overhead lights and throwing rainbow patterns across the polished floor. Each piece of their equipment hummed with energy, force fields shimmering around their tall, elegant forms. Their weapons looked like they belonged in an art museum rather than on a battlefield. Near the center of the hall, the Mordian shock troops displayed their bio-enhanced gear with obvious pride. Their armor seemed alive, shifting colors and texture, as it adapted to the surrounding environment. Tubes and wires connected various pieces, carrying nutrients and enhancement drugs to boost their already impressive physical capabilities. Some had extra arms grafted to their torsos, while others sported reinforced leg muscles that could propel them across vast distances in a single bound. The insectoid hive guards clustered together in the eastern section, their natural exoskeletons reinforced with quantum plating that made them nearly invulnerable to conventional weapons. Their compound eyes tracked every movement in the room while their mandibles clicked in a language that sounded like static electricity. Wings folded against their backs could unfurl in an instant, allowing them to take flight even in the artificial gravity of the station. Then the doors at the far end of the hall opened with a quiet hiss. Every conversation stopped. Every head turned. The humans had arrived. Captain Rex Williams stepped through the doorway first, followed by 11 other soldiers in single file. They wore what looked like metal plates strapped over thick fabric. Their helmets were simple, dome shapes with dark visors that revealed nothing of the faces beneath. No energy fields surrounded them. No bio-enhancements were visible. Their armor did not shift or adapt or hum with power. General Vex of the Valkyrie force tilted his crystalline head and made a sound that might have been laughter. The translation device in his throat converted his words into standard galactic speech. "Are those humans wearing cooking pots?" He asked his aide, loud enough for others to hear. Lieutenant Vok of the Mordian troops leaned toward his squad leader. "Look at their weapons," he whispered. "They still use projectiles that throw metal pieces. How primitive can one species be?" The hive guards' mandibles clicked faster, which their translators indicated as amusement. One of their officers, Commander Hex, spoke in the buzzing language that came out as mechanical words. "Their armor appears to be ceramic plates over cloth material. Such equipment would not survive contact with modern weapons for more than a few seconds." The humans seemed unaware of the attention they were drawing. They moved to an empty section of the hall and stood at ease, waiting for the briefing to begin. Their gear looked heavy and uncomfortable compared to the sleek designs worn by every other species present. Where alien armor flowed like water, or shimmered like precious metals, human equipment looked like it had been hammered together in a workshop. Colonel Grix of the Mordian forces studied the human squad through his enhanced vision. "I can detect no energy signatures from their equipment," he reported to his subordinates. "No bio-enhancement markers. No quantum field generators. How did such a backward species even qualify for the Galactic Defense Initiative?" The question spread through the assembled forces like ripples in a pond. Everyone wanted to know how creatures wearing such ancient-looking armor had earned a place among the galaxy's elite military units. Surely there had been some mistake in the selection process. Admiral Kess of the station's command staff entered the hall and called for attention. The various military leaders formed a loose circle around the central briefing platform. The humans remained at the edge of the group, their reflective visors giving no hint of their thoughts or feelings about the reception they had received. "We have received intelligence about increased pirate activity in the Kepler system," Admiral Kess began. "A group calling themselves the Void Cartel has established a base in an abandoned mining facility. They have been raiding supply convoys and must be eliminated. The alien commanders nodded their various heads or made sounds of understanding. This sounded like a routine operation, the kind of mission their advanced forces could handle with minimal effort. Pirates were usually poorly equipped criminals who relied on surprise rather than superior technology. The assault will be divided among our participating forces, the Admiral continued. Each unit will be assigned specific objectives based on their particular strengths and capabilities. General Vex stepped forward, his crystal armor chiming like wind bells. The Valkyrie request assignment to the primary assault vector. Our energy weapons and defensive systems are ideally suited for frontal engagement. Colonel Grix raised one of his four arms. The Mordian forces volunteer for close combat operations. Our bio-enhancements provide significant advantages in confined spaces. Commander Hex's wings buzzed briefly before folding again. Hive guards will secure elevated positions and provide aerial reconnaissance. All eyes turned to Captain Williams, waiting to hear what the humans might request. He stepped forward and spoke in a voice that carried clearly through his helmet's speakers. Human forces are prepared to accept whatever assignment command deems appropriate. The simplicity of the response drew more amused sounds from the alien troops. Where other commanders had highlighted their advanced capabilities and requested assignments that would showcase their superior technology, the human had simply stated his readiness to follow orders. Admiral Kess consulted his tactical display. Very well, Valkyrie forces will assault the main entrance. Mordian troops will secure the lower levels. Hive guards will control the upper platforms. Human forces will investigate a maintenance tunnel that provides access to the facility's power core. The assignment of the humans to what was clearly a secondary objective did not go unnoticed. Several alien officers exchanged glances that their various species used to indicate satisfaction. The humans had been given the least important job, which seemed appropriate given their obviously inferior equipment. As the briefing concluded and the various forces began preparing for deployment, the mockery continued. Soldiers gathered in small groups, pointing at the human squad and making jokes about their primitive appearance. Some wondered aloud whether the humans would be able to operate their crude weapons effectively. Others speculated about how quickly the metal plates would fail under enemy fire. Captain Williams led his squad toward the departure bay, seemingly oblivious to the attention they continued to draw. Their boots made heavy sounds on the deck plating, another sign of the crude materials they were forced to use. Behind them, the galaxy's finest warriors prepared their energy weapons and activated their advanced defensive systems, confident that they would once again prove the superiority of their technological achievements. None of them suspected that they were about to learn a very important lesson about the difference between sophistication and effectiveness. The transport ships moved through space like deadly arrows aimed at their target. Kepler 442b hung in the darkness ahead, a brown and gray world that had been strip-mined until nothing remained but empty tunnels and abandoned machinery. According to intelligence reports, the Void Cartel had chosen this dead world as their base of operations, using the old mining facility to hide their ships and plan their attacks on merchant vessels inside the Liad transport. General Vex reviewed the tactical data one final time. His crystalline armor reflected the soft blue light from the ship's displays, creating patterns that shifted as he moved. The mining facility was a standard design used throughout the galaxy, with multiple levels connected by transport tubes and maintenance tunnels. It should be simple enough to clear, even with the reduced firepower they were bringing to accommodate the human observers. Estimated resistance? Asked Colonel Grix from his position near the communications console. His bio-enhanced eyes could process the tactical information faster than most computer systems, and his additional arms allowed him to operate multiple controls simultaneously. Intelligence suggests no more than 50 pirates, replied Commander Hex, her compound eyes scanning multiple data streams at once. They are likely using standard weapons and basic defensive positions. This should be concluded within 2 standard hours. The alien commanders had agreed to treat this mission as a training exercise, an opportunity to demonstrate proper military procedures for their human guests. They had even arranged for the assault to be recorded, thinking that other species might benefit from seeing how modern warfare was conducted by professionals. Captain Williams sat with his squad in the cargo section of the transport, checking their equipment with practiced movements. Unlike the alien forces who relied on automated systems to monitor their gear, the humans performed manual inspections of every piece of equipment. They tested weapon functions, verified ammunition counts, and examined their armor for any signs of damage or wear. Primitive maintenance procedures, observed Lieutenant Vach as he watched the humans through the transport's internal cameras. Their technology requires constant manual attention to remain functional. The Mordian forces had spent the journey allowing their bio-enhanced systems to adapt to the expected combat environment. Stimulant glands had increased production, muscle fibers had reinforced themselves, and sensory organs had adjusted to the lighting conditions they would encounter in the facility. By the time they reached their destination, each Mordian soldier would be operating at peak biological efficiency. The Valkyrie had used the travel time to calibrate their energy weapons and synchronize their force field generators. Each soldier's armor was now perfectly tuned to the others, creating an overlapping network of defensive fields that could deflect almost any known weapon system. Their crystal armor sang with harmonious frequencies that indicated optimal performance. The Hive Guards had entered a meditative state that allowed their quantum-enhanced exoskeletons to achieve perfect molecular alignment. When they emerged from this trance, their armor would be harder than diamond and lighter than air. Their natural flight systems had been enhanced with microthrusters that would allow them to maneuver in the facility's confined spaces with precision that bordered on impossible. The transport shuddered slightly as it entered the planet's atmosphere. Through the viewports, the mining facility became visible as a collection of industrial structures connected by covered walkways. Sensor sweeps revealed multiple heat signatures moving within the complex, confirming the presence of hostile forces. "All units prepare for deployment," announced Admiral Kess over the communication system. "Remember that this operation is being recorded for training purposes. Execute your assignments with precision and professionalism." The alien forces began their final preparations with the efficiency that came from centuries of military tradition. Weapons were powered up, armor systems activated, and tactical networks established. Each soldier knew their role and understood exactly how their advanced technology would ensure victory against any opposition they might encounter. General Vex opened a communication channel to Captain Williams. "Human forces, you have been assigned to investigate the maintenance tunnel that leads to the power core. This is a secondary objective with minimal tactical importance. Try not to interfere with the primary assault operations." "Understood, Command," Williams replied in the same steady voice he had used throughout the mission briefing. "Human forces will proceed to assigned objective and await further orders." The condescending tone in the alien commander's voice was not lost on the other officers. They had made it clear that the humans were being given the least important assignment, something that would keep them out of the way while the real soldiers handled the dangerous work. As the transports touched down on the planet's surface, the various forces prepared to disembark. The facility loomed ahead like a mechanical mountain, its dark windows and silent machinery giving it the appearance of a sleeping giant. Sensor readings indicated that the pirates had detected their arrival and were moving to defensive positions. Throughout the structure, the Valkyrie forces formed up in perfect formation, their crystal armor creating a wall of shimmering light that advanced toward the facility's main entrance. Energy weapons hummed with power as force fields locked into position. They moved like dancers, each step coordinated with the others to maintain maximum defensive coverage. The Mordian troops bounded across the rocky terrain with their enhanced leg muscles, covering ground in leaps that would have been impossible for unmodified beings. Their bio-adaptive armor shifted colors to match the surrounding environment, making them difficult to track as they approached the facility's lower access points. The Hive Guards took to the air with a sound like rushing wind, their wings carrying them toward the upper levels of the structure. Quantum-enhanced exoskeletons made them nearly invisible to most detection systems. and their flight paths were calculated to avoid any possible defensive fire from below. The human squad moved at a steady, walking pace across the barren landscape, their heavy boots crunching on the rocky surface. They showed no signs of the excitement or anticipation that marked the other forces. Instead, they maintained the same professional calm they had displayed throughout the journey, as if this were just another routine training exercise. "Look at them," commented Commander Hex as she watched the human advance through her tactical display. "They move like they are carrying heavy loads. Their armor must be incredibly dense to require such effort, probably made from whatever metals they could find on their homeworld," replied Colonel Grix. "It is amazing that they managed to reach space at all with such limitations." The alien commanders established their command post on a ridge overlooking the facility, where they could monitor all assault vectors simultaneously. Multiple display screens showed the progress of each force as they approached their assigned objectives. Everything was proceeding exactly according to plan. The Valkyrie reached the main entrance first, their energy weapons cutting through the facility's security doors like they were made of paper. Force fields deflected the return fire from defensive positions inside, allowing the crystal-armored soldiers to advance without casualties. The Mordian forces breached the lower levels by carrying through reinforced walls with their enhanced strength. Bio-adaptive armor absorbed impacts from primitive projectile weapons, while enhanced reflexes allowed them to dodge most incoming fire. The Hive Guards descended through ventilation systems and maintenance shafts, their quantum exoskeletons allowing them to phase through solid matter when necessary. They secured the upper platforms with minimal resistance, establishing overwatch positions that covered the entire facility. The humans reached their assigned maintenance tunnel and began what appeared to be a careful examination of the entrance. Unlike the other forces, who had immediately commenced their assaults, the human squad spent several minutes studying their objective before taking any action. "Are they having difficulty with their assignment?" asked General Vex, puzzled by the delay. "Perhaps their equipment is not functioning properly." Before anyone could respond, the first distress call crackled through the communication system. The voice was tight with pain and barely controlled panic. "This is Valkyrie Advance Team. We are taking heavy casualties. Request immediate assistance." The alien commanders stared at their displays in shock. According to the tactical readouts, the Valkyrie force was being systematically destroyed by weapons that seemed to ignore their advanced defensive systems entirely. The command post erupted into chaos as more distress calls flooded the communication channels. On the tactical displays, red indicators marked fallen soldiers while warning signals flashed across multiple screens. What should have been a routine operation was turning into a disaster before their eyes. "Valkyrie team leader to command." The voice carried the strain of someone fighting for their life. "Their weapons are penetrating our force fields like they do not exist. My armor is failing. We need immediate backup." General Vex stared at his tactical readout in disbelief. The Valkyrie force that had entered the facility just minutes earlier was already down to half strength. His crystal-armored soldiers, protected by energy fields that could stop starship weapons, were being cut down by what intelligence had described as poorly equipped pirates. "Impossible," he muttered, his crystalline fingers dancing across the control interface. "Force field generators are operating at full capacity. There must be some kind of malfunction." Before he could complete his analysis, Colonel Grix's bio-enhanced hearing picked up another transmission from the lower levels. "Mordian assault team in trouble. Whatever these pirates are using, it is eating through our bio-armor like acid. Request immediate extraction." The Mordian commander watched in horror as his soldiers' enhanced biology turned against them. Their adaptive armor, which had been designed to evolve defenses against any threat, was being dissolved by weapons that seemed specifically engineered to counter biological materials. Enhancement drugs that should have made them stronger were instead spreading the effects of the pirates' biotoxins throughout their systems. "Commander." Hex's compound eyes tracked the data streams from her aerial units with growing alarm. "Hive Guard platforms reporting quantum interference. Our exoskeletons are becoming brittle. We cannot maintain altitude. One by one, the quantum-enhanced warriors began falling from the sky as their molecular perfect armor turned into something as fragile as glass. The very properties that made their equipment superior in normal combat were being turned against them by weapons that understood exactly how their technology functioned. Admiral Kess leaned over the main tactical display, his face pale as casualty. Reports continued to pour in. How is this possible? Intelligence indicated standard pirate equipment. Light weapons, basic defenses, nothing that should pose a threat to our forces. General Vex pulled up the weapons analysis data, his crystalline armor reflecting his growing panic. These are not standard pirate weapons. The energy signatures are completely unknown. The projectiles appear to be designed specifically to counter Valkyrie force field technology. The biotoxins are unlike anything in our database, added Colonel Grix, his enhanced cognitive systems processing the incoming medical data faster than the ship's computers. They target the exact enhancement compounds we use in our armor and biological systems. Commander Hex's wings buzzed with agitation. The quantum scramblers are operating on frequencies that perfectly disrupt our molecular alignment. This level of specific knowledge should not exist outside our most classified research facilities. The truth was becoming clear to all of them. This was not a random pirate raid or a crime of opportunity. The Void Cartel had somehow acquired detailed information about every major military technology in the galaxy and had developed weapons specifically designed to counter each one. The forces that had seemed invincible just hours earlier were now helpless against an enemy that had studied their weaknesses and exploited them perfectly. All units fall back to secondary positions. Admiral Kess commanded, but the retreat was already underway. The surviving alien soldiers were abandoning their objectives and fighting just to reach the extraction points alive on the displays. The human squad was still positioned outside their assigned maintenance tunnel. Captain Williams had not moved his forces forward despite the obvious crisis developing around them. They remained in their original position, apparently studying the tunnel entrance while the rest of the assault force was being systematically destroyed. "Why are the humans not advancing?" demanded General Vex. "Do they not understand the situation?" Colonel Grix enhanced his audio pickups to monitor the human communication channel. They appear to be conducting some kind of detailed reconnaissance of their objective. Their leader is examining the tunnel entrance with primitive optical devices. "We do not have time for their slow procedures." Commander Hex's mandibles clicked rapidly with frustration. "The entire operation is failing." Admiral Kess opened a direct channel to the human squad. "Captain Williams, this is command. The situation has changed. We are facing heavier resistance than anticipated. Abort your mission and proceed to the extraction point immediately." Williams' voice came back calm and professional, showing no signs of the panic that was spreading through the alien command structure. "Negative, Command. We are detecting unusual energy signatures from within the facility. Recommend we proceed with our assigned mission. Did you not hear the distress calls?" Vex practically shouted into his communicator. "The enemy has weapons that are specifically designed to counter our defensive systems. Your primitive armor will not survive contact with these weapons for even a few seconds." "Copy that, Command. We understand the situation. Requesting permission to advance on our objective." The alien commanders exchanged glances that expressed the universal concept of disbelief. The humans wanted to advance into a facility where the galaxy's most advanced military forces were being slaughtered by weapons designed to defeat superior technology. It was either the bravest or most foolish request any of them had ever heard. "Permission denied." Admiral Kess responded immediately. "You will proceed to the extraction point and await evacuation with the surviving forces." But even as he spoke, the tactical display showed the human squad moving toward the tunnel entrance. Williams had apparently decided that his orders took precedence over the evacuation command. 12 soldiers in crude-looking armor were advancing directly into what had become a death trap for everyone else. "They are ignoring direct orders," Observed Colonel Grix with the detached interest of someone whose bio-enhanced brain was recording everything for later analysis. Either their communication equipment is malfunctioning, or they have decided to disobey command authority. It does not matter, replied Commander Hex, her attention focused on the continuing casualty reports from her aerial units. They will be dead within minutes of entering that facility. The weapons that destroyed our advanced systems will make short work of their primitive equipment. General Vex watched the human advance with a mixture of fascination and horror. Should we attempt to stop them, they are walking into certain death. Admiral Kess considered the question for a moment before shaking his head. Our forces are already taking massive casualties trying to extract from this disaster. We cannot risk additional losses attempting to rescue soldiers who have chosen to ignore evacuation orders. The tactical display showed the humans entering the maintenance tunnel while the surviving alien forces continued their desperate retreat. Weapons that had easily penetrated crystal armor, dissolved bio-enhanced materials, and disrupted quantum fields were waiting for targets that appeared to be protected by nothing more than metal plates and cloth. Every alien officer in the command post expected to see 12 more red indicators appear on their screens within the next few minutes. The humans had chosen to advance into a situation that had already proven fatal to soldiers equipped with the most advanced defensive technology in the galaxy. Instead, something completely unexpected began to happen. The energy signatures from within the facility started to change. The weapons that had been systematically destroying the alien forces were suddenly firing at different targets, and the response patterns were not what anyone had anticipated. "Are you reading this?" asked Colonel Grix, his enhanced senses detecting subtle changes in the acoustic signatures coming from inside the facility. "The weapon's fire has changed pattern," confirmed Commander Hex. "The energy discharges sound different, less focused, more scattered." General Vex studied his tactical display with growing confusion. The humans had been inside the facility for several minutes, but no casualty reports had come from their position. If anything, the hostile activity in their sector appeared to be decreasing rather than intensifying. "This makes no sense," he muttered to himself. "Their primitive armor should have failed immediately." None of the alien commanders could explain what they were seeing. The humans should have been dead by now, but instead they seemed to be advancing through the facility, without the devastating losses that had befallen every other assault force. Something was very wrong with their understanding of the situation. Deep inside the mining facility, Captain Williams led his squad through corridors that echoed with the sounds of distant combat. Their heavy boots made steady rhythms on the metal flooring as they advanced toward their objective with methodical precision. Unlike the alien forces, who had relied on sophisticated sensors and advanced targeting systems, the humans moved with the careful attention of soldiers who trusted their own eyes and experience above all else. The maintenance tunnel had led them directly into the facility's power distribution center, exactly where their mission briefing had indicated. What the briefing had not mentioned was the sophisticated array of defensive weapons that the pirates had installed throughout the complex. Energy disruptors designed to overload Valkyrie force fields lined the walls. Deotoxin dispensers that could dissolve Mordian enhancement compounds were hidden in the ceiling. Quantum scramblers tuned to disrupt Hive-Guard exoskeletons hummed with malevolent power. None of these weapons were having any effect on the advancing humans. Sergeant Adams moved along the left wall, his ceramic armor plates absorbing energy discharges that would have been fatal to crystal-based protection systems. The exotic weapons that had devastated the alien forces were reduced to conventional energy beams against materials that had been designed to handle much simpler threats. His ballistic armor was not sophisticated enough to be disrupted by quantum fields or energy manipulation. "Contact front," Williams reported calmly into his communicator as his squad encountered their first group of pirates, engaging with standard procedures. The pirates had been expecting soldiers equipped with the advanced technology used by every other military force in the galaxy. Their weapons had been carefully calibrated to defeat energy shields, bio-enhanced armor, and quantum-reinforced materials. What they found instead was something their exotic countermeasures had never been designed to handle. Corporal Davis raised his projectile weapon and fired a burst of metal slugs at the nearest pirate position. The bullets punched through cover that had been designed to stop energy beams and plasma bolts. Pirates who had felt invincible behind defenses that could defeat the galaxy's most advanced weapons found themselves helpless against technology that was older than their civilization. The human armor performed exactly as it had been designed to perform for centuries of warfare on Earth. Ceramic plates stopped projectiles. Ballistic fabric dispersed impact energy. Heat-resistant coatings absorbed energy weapon discharges. The exotic countermeasures that had turned alien advantages into vulnerabilities were completely useless against equipment that had never relied on those advantages in the first place. Moving to secondary positions, Williams continued his calm tactical commentary as his squad advanced through the facility. Resistance is lighter than expected. What he did not mention was why the resistance was lighter than expected. The pirates had exhausted most of their exotic ammunition defeating the alien forces, and their conventional weapons were proving inadequate against targets they had never prepared to fight. Human soldiers who had trained for warfare against opponents using similar technology were adapting to the situation much faster than pirates who had relied on technological superiority. Private Hyun flanked around a defensive position while her teammates provided covering fire. Her armor was scarred from multiple impacts, but the damage was superficial. Energy weapons that could have penetrated crystal armor were being absorbed by materials that had been designed to handle the heat and radiation of nuclear warfare. Biotoxins that dissolved alien enhancement compounds had no effect on armor that contained no biological components. The pirates were discovering that their carefully planned countermeasures had a fatal flaw. They had been designed to defeat the specific technologies used by known military forces, but they were useless against an enemy that had developed along completely different lines. The humans represented a technological path that the pirates had never encountered and had never prepared to fight. Lieutenant Morgan advanced through a corridor lined with quantum scramblers that should have turned his armor into brittle ceramic. Instead, his equipment continued to function normally because it had never relied on quantum enhancement in the first place. The same molecular simplicity that made human armor look primitive was also making it immune to weapons designed to disrupt more sophisticated systems. Approaching primary objective, Williams reported as his squad reached the facility's main power core, preparing to secure area. Behind them, the sounds of combat were fading as the remaining pirates realized that their superior weapons were not providing the advantages they had expected. Pirates who had been confident in their ability to defeat any galactic military force were retreating from soldiers whose equipment they could not understand or counter. The human tactical approach was as foreign to the pirates as their technology. Where alien forces had relied on overwhelming technological superiority, the humans used simple tactics that had been proven effective through centuries of warfare. They advanced methodically, secured each position before moving to the next, and maintained constant communication with each other. Specialist Kim examined the power core with instruments that looked primitive compared to alien scanning devices. His equipment could not perform detailed molecular analysis or energy signature identification, but it could tell him everything he needed to know about the facility's power systems. Sometimes the simplest tools were the most reliable. Power core secured, Williams announced, beginning sweep of secondary objectives. The alien commanders listening to his reports could hardly believe what they were hearing. The humans were not only surviving contact with weapons that had devastated forces equipped with the galaxy's most advanced technology, they were actually achieving their objectives. The soldiers in crude-looking armor were outperforming warriors, whose equipment was centuries more advanced. The truth was slowly becoming clear to everyone involved. Human armor was not primitive because humans lacked the technology to build something better. It was simple because humans had learned through bitter experience that the best equipment was the kind that worked regardless of what the enemy threw at it. While other species had spent centuries developing increasingly sophisticated defensive systems, humans had focused on reliability and effectiveness. Their armor might not be as impressive as crystal force fields or bioadaptive materials, but it had one crucial advantage that no alien technology possessed. It worked exactly the same way, whether facing primitive projectiles or exotic energy weapons. The pirates had prepared for war against an enemy that relied on technological superiority. They had not prepared for war against an enemy that had built their military doctrine around the assumption that technological superiority was temporary and unreliable. Human equipment was designed to function when everything else failed, and that philosophy was proving devastatingly effective. "All objectives secured," Williams reported as his squad completed their sweep of the facility. "Area is clear of hostile forces, ready for extraction." In the command post outside the facility, alien officers stared at their tactical displays in amazement. The humans had not only survived an encounter that had destroyed most of their forces, they had actually succeeded in completing their mission. 12 soldiers and equipment that looked like it belonged in a museum had outperformed the combined might of the galaxy's most elite military units. General Vex spoke the question that was on everyone's mind. How is this possible? The answer was simpler than any of them had imagined, but it would change how they thought about warfare forever. The transport ships lifted off from Kepler 442b, carrying a very different group of soldiers than had landed just hours earlier. In the medical bay, Valkyrie warriors lay connected to crystal healing matrices, their once beautiful armor now cracked and dull. Mordian troops were undergoing biosystem purification to remove the toxins that had turned their own enhancements against them. Hive guards remained in quantum isolation chambers while their exoskeletons slowly regained molecular stability. The humans sat in the same cargo section they had occupied during the journey to the planet. Their armor showed scars from the battle, but every soldier was walking and talking. Sergeant Adams cleaned his weapon with the same methodical care he had used before the mission. Corporal Davis checked her ceramic plates for damage and made notes about which ones would need replacement. The routine was exactly the same as it had been before they had walked into a facility that had devastated 3 of the galaxy's most elite military forces. In the command section, alien officers struggled to understand what had happened. The after-action reports made no sense according to everything they had been taught about modern warfare. Advanced technology had failed while primitive equipment had succeeded. Sophisticated weapons had been useless while simple tools had proven devastatingly effective. Admiral Kess reviewed the tactical recordings for the 5th time, hoping to find some explanation for the impossible results. "The energy signatures are clear," he announced to the assembled commanders. "The pirate weapons were specifically designed to counter our defensive systems. They had detailed knowledge of Valkyrie force field frequencies, Mordian bioenhancement compounds, and Hiveguard quantum resonance patterns." General Vex shifted uncomfortably in his damaged crystal armor. How did criminals acquire such classified information? "Those specifications are protected by the highest levels of galactic security. That question will be investigated by intelligence services," replied the Admiral. "What concerns me more is understanding why human equipment was unaffected by countermeasures that proved so effective against our forces." Colonel Grix had been analyzing the human performance data with his enhanced cognitive systems. Their armor shows no evidence of energy field generation, bioenhancement integration, or quantum manipulation. The materials appear to be simple ceramics and ballistic fabrics arranged in basic protective configurations. Commander Hex's compound eyes focused on the data displays. Their weapons use chemical propulsion to accelerate metal projectiles. No energy focusing systems, no plasma generation, no quantum acceleration fields. The technology appears to be centuries behind our current standards. "Then how did they succeed where we failed?" asked General Vex. The question hung in the air like a challenge to everything they thought they understood about military technology. Captain Williams entered the command section at Admiral Kess's request. He had removed his helmet, revealing a face that showed the calm competence of someone who had done exactly what he had been trained to do. His uniform was marked with dust and minor burns, but he showed no signs of the stress that was affecting the alien commanders. "Captain Williams," began Admiral Kess, choosing his words carefully, "we need to understand what happened in that facility. Our forces suffered severe casualties from weapons that seemed to have no effect on your equipment. Can you explain this?" Williams considered the question for a moment before responding. "Yes, sir. The enemy weapons were designed to counter specific technologies that our equipment does not use. Their countermeasures were ineffective against our systems because we have never relied on the advantages they were designed to defeat." "But your armor appears so primitive compared to ours," protested General Dex. "How can inferior technology outperform superior systems?" "With respect, sir, I would not call our equipment inferior," replied Williams. "It is designed according to different principles. Where your armor relies on advanced technology to provide protection, ours relies on basic physics and proven materials." "Colonel." Grix leaned forward with interest. "Explain these different principles." Williams gestured toward his ceramic chest plate. "This armor is designed to stop projectiles and absorb energy through simple material properties. It does not generate force fields that can be disrupted. It does not use biological compounds that can be poisoned. It does not rely on quantum effects that can be scrambled. When an enemy develops countermeasures for advanced technology, basic technology continues to work normally." The alien commanders exchanged glances as they began to understand the implications. "You are saying that your people deliberately chose simpler technology?" asked Commander Hex. "Yes, ma'am. Human military doctrine is based on the assumption that any technological advantage is temporary. Our enemies will eventually find ways to counter our equipment. So we build systems that work regardless of what countermeasures they develop." Admiral Kess studied the human captain with new respect. "Your species has been at war for most of its history, has it not?" "Yes, sir. We have been fighting each other for thousands of years before we reached space. We learned early that the most reliable equipment is the kind that works when everything else fails." General Vex looked at his damaged crystal armor with new understanding. "So while we have been developing increasingly sophisticated systems, you have been perfecting simple ones." "That is correct, sir. Our armor might not be as impressive as yours, but it has one advantage that cannot be overcome through technological countermeasures. It works the same way whether the enemy is using stone weapons or quantum disruptors." The revelation was humbling for commanders who had spent their careers believing that technological superiority was the key to military success. The humans had proven that sometimes the most advanced approach was to avoid advancement altogether. "Colonel," Grix asked the question that was troubling all of them, "how do we defend against enemies who know our weaknesses so precisely?" Williams replied without hesitation. "You adapt, sir. You develop backup systems that do not rely on the same technologies. You train your soldiers to fight effectively even when their advanced equipment fails. You remember that the enemy only has to find one weakness in a complex system to defeat it, but they have to find many weaknesses in a simple system." "Are you suggesting we abandon our technological advantages?" asked Commander Hex. "No, ma'am. I'm suggesting you not become completely dependent on them. The best military force is one that can fight effectively with advanced equipment or without it." Admiral Kess nodded slowly as he understood the wisdom in the human approach. "You build redundancy into your systems by making sure the redundancy is completely different from the primary technology." "Exactly, sir. When energy weapons fail, projectile weapons still work. When force fields are penetrated, armor plates still stop bullets. When advanced sensors are jammed, trained eyes still see targets." The alien commanders spent the rest of the journey home studying human military equipment and doctrine. They discovered that what they had dismissed as primitive was actually the result of centuries of practical experience in warfare. Every piece of human equipment had been tested not just against current threats, but against the possibility that those threats might evolve unexpected capabilities. The mockery had ended when the shooting began. In the aftermath, the galaxy's most advanced military forces found themselves learning from soldiers whose equipment looked like it belonged in a museum. The humans had taught them that sometimes the most sophisticated approach was the simplest one, and that the best technology was the kind that worked regardless of circumstances. General Vex made a note to recommend that his forces begin developing backup systems based on simple materials and proven physics. Colonel Grix started planning training exercises that would prepare his troops to fight without their enhancements. Commander Hex began researching armor designs that did not rely on quantum effects. The humans had not just survived the mission. They had changed how the galaxy thought about warfare. Sometimes the most advanced lesson was the oldest one, and experience was worth more than technology. The galaxy had learned to respect the species that had never stopped expecting their enemies to be smarter than their equipment. Captain Williams returned to his squad and began planning their next training exercise. There were always new threats to prepare for and simple solutions to develop for complex problems.